Okay, we are back and it's time to test this thing out. And I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to first delete that dual 2 that I accidentally created because I don't even need to look at that. So let's get rid of that. All right, there we go. And let's fire this thing up and see how badly I did. So we've logged in and okay, right away I see that I jumped right out of step 1 way too fast. That's not a good thing. I'm going to just drag this down a little bit so I can see a little bit more what's going on. And I'm in step 2, and that's because I'm waiting for bool 1 to energize. So let's go ahead and energize that and then de-energize it. I went to step 3. And now I should either go to step 1 or step 2 at the end of 10 seconds. And I went to step 1. Now step 1 is actually counting. So the first time I'm not sure why it didn't, but after that it went ahead and started counting. So we're in step 2, and let's go ahead and toggle my bool 2. Once I get into step 3, that should make me switch to step 2 instead of back to step 1. So let's go ahead and energize my bool 1 again to get out of step 2. And I'll just leave that energized so that it will automatically cycle, and it should go back and forth between step 3 and step 2. Yep, okay, that's what's happening. And how's my count doing? What's not happening is my exit counter is not actually counting on exit. And that's probably because I need to do something to reset the input on that counter so that it's not always energized. So let's go ahead and stop this guy, jump back offline, and let's go into my exit program here. And here's the problem. With my counter, every time I come to this rung, it's only evaluating the counter once. So let's try to put some logic in here that allows us to evaluate that counter multiple times and actually see it de-energized once in a while. So I'm going to put a network above, and let's go ahead and put a couple below. And let's try this. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to set a bit. And I'll just call this count bool. And then I'm going to make this counter actually be dependent upon that count bool with a coil. So let's spell that out and then move this over here to the right side. And then I'm going to de-energize count bool. So one more time. Now count bool will be de-energized. And I'm going to copy my counter rung and I'm going to paste that right down here. So now it should reevaluate the counter one more time, and I believe in this environment it'll let me actually mention the counter 2 different times. So basically invoking it a second time so that it sees itself as de-energized. So let's try that. We'll jump out, put this thing online, and it doesn't look like it has a problem with me mentioning CTU twice, so that's probably a good thing. Let's go ahead and close bool 1 and close bool 2, and we've transitioned once. We've got step 2 count up to 1. That's fine, but we've always been able to get up to 1. So let's find out if we're actually going to be able to get up to a 2 and keep going from there. And we'll find that out in 2 seconds. And there we go. So now we're actually counting. We just needed to re-invoke our counter so that it could see itself as de-energized once every time it goes around. And then whenever it goes back into that exit action, it'll re-energize itself and thus add another count. So perfect. Now the only problem we have is our first step does not want to respect our transition the first time through. So if I de-energize this bool 2 here, and let's get up so we can actually see the top part of our program. Whenever we go down into step 3, we transition back up into step 1, it'll stay there for 10 seconds, and that's fine, but whenever we do our first scan, it's not, it's jumping right down. So we're going to have to put some logic in there to work around that, because when we first get to step 1, I want it to take 10 seconds there as well. So let's go ahead and stop the program and take it offline. And now let's come in here, and I want to go ahead and figure out how we can make this thing time the first time only. So I'm going to start off by creating another rung up above here. And let's do something a little hinky. So I'm going to create a 10-second timer, and I'll call this 10-sec init. Good. And that's going to have our T-pound 10s time. And then I'm going to put a negative contact here, and we're going to call this non-run. Okay, so this thing has not run yet. So as long as non-run is open, then we're going to energize this timer. And when we do, let's come down here and let's create some really cool logic. That's going to be a simple hold-in circuit. And we're going to energize this based on our 10-sec init timer dot Q. So once that timer has energized, then we're going to go ahead and set a bit. And actually, if we're going to set that bit, I really don't need a hold-in. So let's get rid of that. And we're going to call that enable transit. Enable the transition bool. And then we'll come down here and we'll put a contact on that. So let's pull up our enable transit. And once we energize that, that'll stay energized forever. And actually, looking at that, since I'm not going to use that bit after all, we can go ahead and get rid of that. So we can energize our timer perpetually. And once the timer fires, then we're going to go ahead and enable the transition. And from then on, it should always be enabled. Okay, I think we've got some working logic there. Let's find out. Let's jump out of there. Put this thing back online and run it. And I'm going to pull this down a little bit so that I can see what's going on. And sure enough, it looks like we are running in our first step. Bingo. And then we transitioned automatically to the second one. And that's going to wait on me to push this button. So I'll just wait till after the 10 seconds. And sure enough, it's going to wait on me. Go. And then from here, I know it's going to go back up to step 1 unless I energize bool 2. And there, right back to 2. And 2 should be counting. And then I'm going to go ahead and send us back up to step 1 one more time. And I want to make sure it doesn't make us wait 20 seconds. I want to make sure that it only goes 10 seconds. If it does, then I say I've got a working project at this point. Whoops, I thought I de-energized that, and I guess I did not. So let's go ahead and make sure that bool 2 is de-energized so that step 3 will transition back to step 1. And we've got 7, 8, 9, and back to step 1. And we've got our time running immediately. And hopefully we don't have another timer going in the background on top of this one. We don't. So yay. All right. Finally, we've got this thing working. Took a little bit of work just because of how this environment is laid out, but that's okay. In the end, we got it going, and that's what a programmer does. So cool. I would call that one more paradigm that we've got, and that's a wrap. So I'll see you in the next lecture. Cheers.